really honest with you. A lot of your real estate brothers and sisters are in an awful lot of pain. There's an awful lot of confusion. We have some family members that are really sick. We have others that we've already lost. And that's the thing that makes this company different, is because that none of that will have been in vain. There's a dream that is Keller Williams. That dream shall be realized, and it's realized every time one of us lives a bigger life than we would have had we not found the brand. And that's the difference. If there's any unfortunate part of it, not to go on, John, but it's that you end up spending more time in a recruiting appointment telling someone about technology than telling somebody what I just said, because how could you possibly make someone understand why 80 people get on a Zoom call on some idle Tuesday afternoon just to be in fellowship with each other?
Right.
The competitors don't get that.
Absolutely. So, obviously your real estate career has spanned 20 years, 21 years. And, you've gone through the early 2000s, the 2008, 9, 10, and obviously now we're in something far different. But once we get through, obviously, and our hearts go out to everyone that's been affected. But once we get into that fundamentals of what the recession is, can you speak to, and I have said this all along, the value proposition of Keller Williams will shine through much brighter in a slower / maybe sluggish market than a market that's on fire, where the coaching, the mentoring, the technology, those didn't matter before. People taking pictures of the house with an iPhone and having 10 offers the next day. There is something to be said about being poised and in the position where we're at, and no one sees it more globally than you at your position. Can you speak to that and what opportunity we have on the other side here?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think on a long enough timeline, the consumer always gets what they want. And I think what COVID did is it's going to hasten them getting it. Meaning, I think that people want to look at less houses, but more of the right ones. I believe that. I think that people want to have a more seamless experience with a human, meaning they want human interaction, but they also want no widgets and no logins and no disruption in the technology. The consumer doesn't want to log into 13 systems to buy a house. They don't want to have 6 places to search. They want a connected experience with a fiduciary at the center of it. That's what I believe. And so I think that you're wildly ahead, meaning that right now we know as search gets more human, more humans will search. Well, if you go on kw.com right now, you can search for any landmark in the United States. You could type in the Rose Bowl or the White House or the Hollywood sign or the Las Vegas Strip, or Gary loves to type in Stevie Ray Vaughan statue, because that's what he likes here in Austin. Those things are all there. And I think that people search because they have a life event. Like their kid gets into the University of Michigan and they type University of Michigan, enter, and it takes them to the center of campus. And then they can push the minus and then pull out a little bit. And that's how they look for housing. I don't think people want to look for housing with zip codes. I just don't. And so right now you have that ability. You have that ability in your consumer app. Guide that we're building in your app, this first step to letting the consumer do the entire transaction in their phone. And we're working on it, housing the authentic signings of DocuSign. Like that's what they want. And right. I think that you're just much closer to actually being able to provide it all. And I truly believe right now we have to remember the fundamental truth of real estate. People do business with people they like, period. That's it. And by the way, as soon as that stops being a thing, I'll no longer be the vice president of industry because I wouldn't understand the industry. And you know why? Because I believe the industry is built on people and human frailty. And those things don't change over 100 years from my life and yours. I pray you live that long. They change over like 1,000,000 years. And the human condition demands that people will do business with people they like, period. And as long as we keep that in mind, we won't lose. So I would urge you right now, as your people are out there terrified about the recession and they like watch CNBC and they're like, oh my gosh, what's happening with my money? You need to be out there giving the presidential address to your people. Meaning like they need to hear from you right now, because even if you hate the president, you still want to know what he's thinking. And so you got to be there. and you got to be giving the presidential address. You have to remind people, here's the human element of it. They hear the word recession on the news, right? And then they immediately think, I know what this is like. My house is going to lose 40 to 60% of its value. There's going to be foreclosure signs all over the neighborhood. I remember this. I remember recession. I know what that means. That's what they do, you guys. They remember the last one they were in. But you know what? This isn't a housing recession caused by bad mortgage-backed securities. We're studying this more like a natural disaster, meaning like recessions are tied to economic problems. So you have a mortgage-backed security issue, boom, you have a recession in 08. You have a tech problem where you're valuing tech companies that don't make any profit, boom, you have a recession in 2000 because of that. You have an over-invested bond market in international bonds. Boom, 94 happens and the bond market implodes. You have no rules for savings and loans. They're just like the richest piggy bank. Boom, 87 happens. And I know Brad remembers that one. I'm looking at the faces. It just happens. And you go past that. You go like 79 and 80. That you guys, that was an economic recession based on bad interest rate policy and an oil embargo in the Middle East. Like, this isn't that. This is a black swan pandemic, and this is a natural disaster. And when you study natural disasters, they have these things that are in common. And here's what happens in every one of them. Number one, everybody that wanted to take an action prior to it starting still does. Like anyone that wanted to move prior to this still wants to move. I promise you 3 weeks in their house hasn't changed that. Then you add to that. And
probably added to it.
Yeah, John. And it's also added to it because you have people now that are not going to make it back from this economically. Like, let's just call it what it is. Like, some people are going to go out of business. And you know what? They're great people, and they may have had a great business plan. But you know what? Bad timing. And you know what? Timing, it turns out, it's really important. And they're going to go out, and they're going to need to downsize. Then you're going to have other people that are going to make a fortune. They're the people that sell hand sanitizer, and they're going to want to buy mansions with pools. And then you're going to have some people that get divorced. They come out of this thing and say, you know what? I'm making a change. And then you have other people that are going to, and I just promised you this, you're going to see the birth rate go up about 9 months from now. There's going to be a bunch of kids named Corona. It's just what happens every time there's a natural disaster. And all of this is in this big bow that's being drawn back, full of energy. And this energy is all those people. And then add to it interest rates at a historic low, and it's at tension, and it's going to burst, and it's going to go. And when it goes, you're going to see a housing market like you don't remember. You're going to see new listings coming on by the dozen. You're going to see buyers reaching out. You're going to see pre-approvals, and people are going to need fiduciary. And if you don't do the presidential address right now for your sphere of influence, your past clients, your friends and family, then when it comes time to shop, they might do it with someone else. You have to be telling them housing markets are doing fine. The values are not plummeting. The reasons you wanted to move prior to this are still the same reasons today. Interest rates are still historically low. All of these things, you have to remind them because people paint the worst picture of what's happening. And in the absence of capturing market share, you got to capture that mind share. That's what I think, John.
Well, and I also think too, and we go back to the drawing that you designed where you have people at the top of the apex, you have the 5 to 7 year periods in between, obviously showing the average time the family moves, and you look at the people, they settle or they get, they're 5 days out, they're clear to close, they're at the top of that curve, and then the next day they go down to the bottom of that curve. And the idea of touching those people throughout the process, I think that curve could get switched upside down. All, people that maybe were at the top just got furloughed, people at the bottom. So all the more important reason to be talking to every single one of them, because now someone that was 9 months out could be 30 days out.
100%. The reason that drawing works is because people move when they have life events. This is the same reason that people used to move from one cave to another, right? You get a job, you lose a job. You find love, you get divorced. You have a kid, you become an empty nester. You get them these are the life events that precipitate a move. And when we complicate the real estate business, we all look dumb. It's really easy. When your life changes, you change the set. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's the deal. And you look up right now and say, well, what are the numbers driving life change? You got 3 million people who have taken mortgage relief so far. You got 22 million people out of work. Home builders just had their worst month since 1984. It's down 22% month over month. What does furlough mean? The Google search. What does furlough mean is up 5,000% in the last 30 days. This is what my friends at Google are telling me. Guys, San Diego Comic-Con is canceled. If that doesn't shake you up, then I don't know what does. And you're coming off Friday of last week. You guys, that's 4 days ago, was the deadliest day during this pandemic in the US. We lost 4,591 souls. Like, these are the life events that precipitate moving. And we have to realize that although it feels like to you the three-ring circus that is your life has slowed down, for other people it's actually sped up. Because here's the thing. If you are one of the 4,591 people's spouse who happened to pass away on Friday of last week, you need a real estate agent to help you. And I don't mean you're swooping in to take a listing. I just mean somebody once said to me, you know, Jason, you're an ambulance chaser. That's what they said to me. You talk about how you chase divorce attorneys for leads. And you know what I said? I thought about it because I felt really bad. I said, you know what? If I was a doctor, I would be the kind that would chase every ambulance I saw, because I would believe in my skills to be able to help that person. And you know what? I'm not going to be ashamed of that. And so when people need advice, I'm going to be there. And that to me is what a fiduciary is. And if you're only going to be a fiduciary at the moment in time when someone needs you, then that's not called fiduciary. That's called capitalism. Cool, no judgment. We have to be fiduciary right now to every single person in our databanks. And that might mean simply calling, and I call it the Adele script. Hello, how are you? That's it. That's the whole script. We all know the song. But like, that's the most human script right now. And I think there's this great book by Daniel Pink called To Sell is Human. And he makes the argument that part of the human condition is needing to sell. Whether it was drawing on cave walls pictures of hunts, and I promise you the animals were bigger in the picture than they were in real life, they were selling the idea of the hunt. And to sell is human, in that I need you, I'm begging you, please sell your people on the idea that this too shall pass and it is going to be okay. And sell them on good information that helps them feel more secure in the decisions that they've made. And let them know that their homes are not losing all their value because they feel out of control of enough things right now. Guys, they can't even decide when to get a haircut. They're cutting their own hair.
I cut my hair last night for this thing. It's the first time I ever had a hat on.
Real. Like, we're out of control of so much. Please call them and remind them that the decisions they made with housing don't practice mark to market. They don't change minute to minute. And I think that if you simply made that call, that would be the humanity meeting the technology. And it's at that time, I think, that real estate agents are the best rendition of the industry.
I always think, so I was in new home sales for 18 and a half years before coming to here 2 years ago. And I've always thought, whether it's on the new home sales side, whether it's on this side of the business, it's always going to be a human business, people business, right? And to your point, and I'd love for you to touch on this, we all refer to our CRMs, our SOIs, as a database. You refer to it as a data bank, because a data bank, you have to do what?
Yeah, with the data bank, you're going to have to make deposits. And in my
Can you
mind,
talk about that?
Yeah, because I think about it and I'm like, if you can see my background, like, this is a database. It's this empty, hollow thing that has maybe cool floors. Like, and the floors are just a list of names. This is a data bank. You recognize the room because it's the Oval Office both ways. The difference are the things that fill it. And a data bank is something that you make deposits into. These deposits are every time you take somebody who is feeling like this at the start of the call and feels like this at the end of the call, and make sure that you're the person in the middle of it. Meaning, right, every time you arm somebody with information that makes them feel good, you've made a deposit. Every time you help somebody, every time you do something human, I think it's complete bullshit that somebody wants to swipe right to buy a house. I don't believe that. I believe that people want to do business with people. They want to be able to sit at a kitchen table with somebody who understands life journey. They want to be able to have a conversation with somebody that has either some semblance of shared experience or some form of altruism in their heart. And that's where sales begins. That's really what real estate agents are selling, which is our ability to help people move past fear. Because in order to move past fear, you have to be willing to deal with pain. And on the other side of pain comes this freedom. And it's the same fear of moving and the pain of doing it. And then how great it feels when you finally come out the other side. And we get to be a part of that. And it's the ultimate backdrop for people's lives.
It is. And
with a database is you want to talk to me about how many touches you make or how many emails you send or how many. And yeah, that's probably an important thing to track, but people don't remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel. A data bank is a place where you make people feel good. You treat people the right way. And those are passe ideas in the new economy, sure. But you know what? They're alive and well at Keller Williams. And every piece of technology that I have a hand in building is going to magnify that, not minimize it. Because the minute an algorithm can solve the problem, all of us are out of work.
Right. And when you talk about, in going back to people buy you before they buy whatever you're selling, right? Or whatever you represent. And, to your point of, and I think especially now where we have that technology disruption, technology right now can't feel the emotions of, to use the analogy, of a widow or a widower. And I actually think that the value, and I'd love to get your thought on this, the human, and it's sad we have to say this, but the human value is coming back in life after this whole pandemic, if that's fair.
And the crazy thing is it's coming back via technology. Meaning you and I aren't looking face to face unless we had new tech. I'm telling you guys, when the technology meets the humanity, that's when this whole magical thing happens. That's the synchronicity that keeps the whole thing moving. That's the dream. This idea that there was going to be some kind of war between technology and realtors like Terminator 2 or RoboCop, it ain't going to happen. Like, the public has voted, I want a human in the transaction. And I want technology in the transaction. And y'all are going to have to do both. And I think of it like superheroes. Like, when you look up, you're going to have more than just one set of superhero powers. Because everything that you do has to be magnified. And in order to do that, you're going to have to look around your people. You're going to have to say, who in my database can help me? Who's coaching me? Who's teaching me the tech? You got to be learning all of it. And you can't say, I'm not a tech person. That's like, it's dumb. It's like, for those of you that say I'm not a tech person, I would ask you, are you taking your clothes to the stream and beating them clean? And you would say, no, I use the dishwasher and I use the washing machine. And I would say, yeah, of course. So in that way, you're a tech person. Have you decided to still lace up the horse each day, or do you take a car? And you'd say, no, I drive. And now you're just alienating me and you're talking down to me. And I would say, fair. And are you using one of these smartphones? And you would say, of course. But here's the thing. Like, because of that, you're all tech people. What you really mean is, I don't like technology that I don't know how to use. And I darn sure don't like technology that doesn't make my life easier. And that's the conversation. Meaning, and I'll just use command as an example, but if command hasn't made your life easier, then why would you like it? You wouldn't. And if somebody hasn't sat down next to you and showed you how to use it such that you do, why would you use it? And again, you wouldn't. But it's the same thing with your consumer. Like, why would they rush to the app store to buy your KW app if you don't have it in your phone? And if you don't, this is a great opportunity to get it. Because here's the thing. They're searching for real estate. The only question is whether they're using your technology to do it or somebody else's. And there's no debate on those two things.
And I love when you always talk about, everyone on this call, all of our real estate professionals on this Zoom, have you spoken with your sphere of influence in the last 60 days, 90 days? Because if you haven't, that's a scary thought, and someone is.
It's really important. Here, let's do it like this. How many of you guys, show of hand, I can see, have financial advisors? Anybody? Cool. Now, how many of your financial advisors have called you in the last 30 days to help you make a list of your household expenses so that you spend less during this time? One of us. By the way, Genevieve, everyone should have your person. The rest of us haven't. You're the only one raising your hand, my dear. You guys, this is an entire industry that's supposed to be the fiduciaries of our money. Well, you would think at a time when everyone knows that real estate agents are having a liquidity issue because you're showing less homes, which means you're selling more, you would think your advisor would be calling to help you. But you know what? They're not. And you know why? Because they just assume that you know and you can take care of yourself. And you know what? Maybe that's true because you're all really resilient and you got a ton of grit. And maybe there's some people in your data bank that don't. And that's being the change agent, being willing to look to find the person that needs your help on the days when you don't feel like looking for them. That's leadership. And I'm begging you guys to lead your data banks right now because they're scared and they have no idea what to believe and they don't really know what's going on. And anyone that tells you that does is lying to you because none of us since 1700s have been through this, 1817, like it's 100 years. And I'm not saying you have all the answers. I am saying that you have to stand and be an immovable object when it comes to residential real estate and explaining what's happening with it in real time to your people. And if you're not, why would they have any use for you when it all comes back?
Well, in coming from contribution and, you know, when you can go to someone with that and having that competitive brilliance of knowing what's going on, not only in your neighborhood, but across the country, you know, numbers, they remove the emotion. And to your point, leveraging that is so critical. One thing, and I know, you know, we're up against the clock here for you, and I want to be very respectful of your time, but it's really interesting how before command gets rolled out and we have adoption, it's not where we want it to be. And now all of a sudden people are cutting costs, this and that. And they realize there's this great tool that Gary built called Command 3-4 years ago. And it's funny for us because we're talking, you know, do we have something like this? Do we have something like that? And hey folks, not only do we have all of those, but they're all on one platform. So yeah. I will let you take that softball and run with it, my friend.
I won't beat it to a dead horse. It's funny when no one notices that you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars building technology. And the truth is it took a lot of time to build it. And the truth is when we rolled it out to our partners, knowing that it wasn't perfect, but knowing you guys would help us make it perfect. And so a lot of you leaned in really early on and you got frustrated. And I totally understand that. I would beg you to take another look at it today. It's vastly, vastly, vastly improved in almost every single way. And I would be willing to take the Pepsi challenge against any third-party piece of technology. Not to say that we do everything, but I am saying that I think you're going to have a really difficult time making an argument that it isn't really usable for the vast majority of you. And I also think that no matter what production level you are, there's components in it that 100% are usable for you today. Wow. And we're going to keep working on it. I just think, you know, the way that I look at it, I think you have to line up all of your household expenses and then all of your business expenses. And then you have to drop them into 3 buckets. I absolutely need it and cannot live without it. That's bucket number 1. These are your MLS dues, your mortgage, whatever it is. Bucket number 2, these are all the things I prefer to have because they make my life easier or my business easier. Bucket number 3, this is just all the stuff you're paying for because you're rich. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm not rich. Yes, you too. Compared to the rest of the world, we're all rich. Let's just enjoy it. Fine. But because of that, expense creeps into our life. Like I was paying for XM Sirius radio in my car. Guys, I don't even remember what color my car is. I'm not allowed to drive it. I'm not paying for that anymore. So I'm cutting that. The Peloton thing, which I didn't ride it when the economy was good, but I paid for it monthly.
What's a Peloton?
I'm just not paying for it right now. So $40 a month for an exercise bike, I'm not doing that. I need that money back. And here's the misnomer. A lot of you think that you cut your expenses because you can't afford your bills. That's not why you cut expenses. You cut expenses so that you can reallocate. Expenses are things you pay to maintain continuity and convenience of life and business. You cut them so that you can invest that money. Investments are things you want a 4+X return on. And if you want to look around right now, friends, on the other side of a natural disaster always lies investment opportunity. Like, look at the stock market. You want to bet long on stuff? Ask the question. Some of you ask the question, what companies will my grandkids love when they're 17? Bet on those companies right now because they're 60% off. Yep. Some of you ask, what will my kid like when he's 16? Bet on those companies now. And and look up, because there's going to be all kinds of real estate investment. And the biggest investment right now, people. If you've been waiting to make a hire or look around your world and add some leverage in, you got 22 million that are unemployed. It's a great investment to make. And I would urge you, cut your expenses so that you can invest more, because this game isn't about how many homes you sell every year. It's about how much net income, money you take home at the end of it to live the life you want to live. That's the measure. And I really believe if you asked everyone in this group, how hard do you spend making money? You could all wax poetically about how hard it is. And then if I asked, how many hours a week are you spending making sure you keep the money you earn? A lot of you probably couldn't give me a great answer. And I'm begging you, start to spend some time on that, because the money you keep is more important than the money you make.
Awesome. Jason, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much.
Can I give you guys a few quick fire ideas on how to connect with your sphere of influences?
Please. Yes.
Is that okay?
You can keep going, my friend.
So I just want to give you guys a few ideas from stuff I'm seeing from realtors around the country, because I believe in times like this, you got to fill your head with new information. Number one, and I love this one, I saw an agent, she took a blank sheet of paper. She put her team's logo on it. She put this big block KW under it, and she PDF'd that out to all of her people in an email. Coloring contest, go. She said, have your kids color it, take a picture of it, and then post it on Facebook. Hashtag best realtor in the world, Jason Abrams. You guys, she's got hundreds of people coloring her logo and posting them on Facebook. A lot of people have kids at home right now. I thought it was brilliant. That's capturing mind share. I'd love to see you doing some interviews with people. If you have interviews that you can put on Facebook, maybe you film it real easy with Zoom. Interview the superheroes that are in your data bank. Like, find a personal trainer to interview about how to get fit at home. I can't be the only one gaining weight during this thing. Come on, you guys. How about someone to talk about how to cut hair? If you have a salon person in there, please do an interview with that person. And just teach the sideburn thing, because people are looking whack to me. And ladies, if you got a manicurist, I guess y'all get this powder put on your hands that you can't get it taken off without like a construction crew and a city permit. I don't get it, but interview a manicurist and tell people how to wrap their fingers in the foil. Like, the struggle is real. That's the kind of stuff people want to see. If you have a chef, do a 10-minute interview on one new meal that we can make at home. I can't be the only one eating the same 4 meals. I miss bread baskets. How about just an interview on how to make a delicious bread basket? I'd watch that. And I think people will connect with you. And call the small business owners in your markets right now and ask them, how can I support you? No one's calling them and asking them that. Just like show of hands, how many of your customers have called you and asked how they can support you right now? Like, it's sad, not anyone. So if you call a small business owner and say, how can I help you right now? Are you having a hard time? I'm a small business owner too. And you know what? I wish someone would have made this call to me. You guys, you'll come out of this thing with a ton of market share, because people remember if you care about them during times like this. And maybe they're going to say, you know what? Do a Facebook interview on me for 10 minutes and let me tell my story to your audience. Send a mass email to me after that. Then send a mass text message. You can do all of that in command. And maybe the trade-off is they're going to let you put your 2-page realtor newsletter inside of their small businesses once a month for the next 12 months on the other side of this pandemic. You guys, that would be win-win. That would be a small business stimulus plan worth doing. What would your competitors say when they look up 6 months from now and every store they go into, from the ice cream shop to the Home Depot to this, to that, to the other, has a newsletter from a Keller Williams agent in it because you supported them when no one else would? This is the idea. There's 2 types of agents right now, you guys. There's the kind that are sitting at home and waiting for this to be over, and there's the kind that are taking care of people and waiting for this to be over. And I'm begging you to please be in that second group.
And for those, Jason, and that was brilliant. And for those that are in that second group, proactive right now, they're getting business, and it's coming quicker and quicker and quicker.
Yeah. And for those of you, if we have anyone, do we have anyone here that owns a team that's operating in the team environment? Any of y'all?
Yes, we do.
A couple of you guys. Well, and by the way, when I think a team, I kind of also think a family, meaning if you're trying to head a household right now, I think it's the same thing. My action items for y'all, whether you have a team or a family you're trying to head, you got to cast a 90-day vision. Like your 5-year vision probably still works. Your 1-year vision might be okay, but you guys, your people need to hear what the 90-day vision is. And the 90-day visions have all changed. The house is now the schoolhouse and the prayer house and the workplace. Like you have to change the 90-day vision. And once you do that, I beg you to get into fellowship with your people and get them to buy into what the new vision is. Then I think you have to get the people on your team. You got to meet one-on-one with them, and they have to agree to do some new tasks, because if we change the vision, we also have to change the to-do list. And then I think if you're running a real business, you got to use this time to make a new 30, 60, 90 for every person on your team. That's not something you do just when you have a new hire. It's something you do anytime the true vision of the firm changes. And by the way, if you're at home, if you've never done a 30, 60, 90 with the people important to you, here's what it is. All it is are the big rocks. It's the top 20%. It's what matters most over the next 30 days and the next 60 days and the next 90 days. It's not the other 80%. It's just that. It's not a busy work thing. That's called love. Like that's just how you care about people, which is here's the vision for us and here are the things we're going to matter because we track what matters. If we don't track it, then it clearly doesn't matter. Once you have that, I'm going to beg you, if you run a team, ramp up your formal communication. There's 2 types of communication, casual and formal. Casual is you just all run into each other at the office. I get it. That's all gone. And so you have to ramp up formal, which means if you have people, you got to be meeting with them more regularly and you got to tell them you care about them. And here's the cadence: gratitude, then Adele's script. How are you? Then whatever matters, business, then gratitude at the end. And I'm urging you guys, please all take those steps. If all you did was leave this call and sit down with the people in your house and make a 90-day vision and then each agree on what matters most to thrive during the next 90 days instead of just survive it, y'all could change the world. I really believe that.
It's very clear to all of us that you do, and you know, your passion is undeniable. And do you have anything else to add? Again, I want to be very respectful of your time.
No. Anytime I start crying, it's time for me to go. I want you to know, you guys, that I think of Keller Williams as this giant garden. It's going to sound really corny to a couple of you, but it's at times it's the most beautiful place that you could ever find. And then there's other seasons where it isn't. And then I look around sometimes and I'm all alone in a place that I don't recognize in it. And I think each of us, we get this chance to tend this garden for this really short period of time. And some of us get to tend it on a national level. And some of us are tending it locally, but we're all in the same one. And every one of your consumers is part of it. And being able to tend it this way is the greatest honor of my life. I'm just so grateful for each of you for letting me do it. So thank you all, and please go back and love on your people, because if you don't, I promise you, none of your competitors will.
Jason, can I just say one thing? John and I, we were on the regional call just before we got in this on career visioning, and we talked a lot about you. Bo, the regional director, talked about you, and I cannot express the gratitude that we at Keller Williams Dulles have for you. You are top 5 leaders in Keller Williams Realty International, the largest real estate company in the world, and to spend 40 minutes with us, with Keller Williams Dulles, it just means so much to us. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm really clear that the strength of Keller Williams has nothing to do with the brick and steel and hand-scraped wood in the buildings here in Austin. It's these 2 guys, and I get to hang out.
And you, Jason. And you.
You top 5.
I get to hang out for this short time with them.
I don't
the
know
real
about
power of it, the real power of it is the relationships that you have with your customers. That's the power of it. That's what your competitors, by the way, they can't figure out. That's why it makes them so crazy, that they sit in rooms and they say, "Guy, it's cheaper to work here. Why don't they all just come here?" And they say, "Well, we have tech also. Why don't they just come here? We wrote a book too." It's none of those things. All of those things are simply tools to move the 3 things that matter: God, family, and business, through the lives of your customers. That's it. And you know what? Here's the thing. You can keep telling them all that and they just kind of snicker. but that's the secret weapon. And it's been in the sauce since 1986. And no one can figure it out. So I got to run. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jason.
Jason.
Thank you.